Okay, let's talk about an opinion poll, the latest out from IPSOS, which was commissioned by the Inclusive Society Institute, regarding the state of support in political parties around the country. Now, it has me slightly confused. The headline news is the ANC has slipped among all possible voters to 33%. However, when you take into account turnout, the people who will actually vote, this poll indicates the ANC could still get a majority. So that distortion between 33% and 50% is something that needs explaining. It says at the top level of turnout, the ANC could get 53%, the DA 20%, and the EF 17%. I need that explained to me, and Daryl Swanepoel is going to be the man to do it, the Chief Executive Officer of ISI. Hello, Daryl.
Hi there, Mike. Good to be with you.
Thanks for your time. Firstly, what is the Inclusive Society Institute?
Okay, the Inclusive Society Institute is an independent, non-aligned public policy research institute, and we also work in the field of democracy, human rights, and constitutionalism. And we do that work through the lens of social democracy. So that's who we are.
Okay, and you commissioned this poll. It was done when and on what basis? Is it statistically robust?
All right. Well, first of all, it was done in July, August, and then we needed some time to interpret the results. It's extremely robust. It's one of the largest polls. It's part of the Kayabo syndicated results, where more than 3,600 interviews took place across the country in people's homes, face-to-face, in their home language. So we are pretty confident that the statistics are robust and pretty accurate.
Okay, explain to me this key distortion, if you like. National support, only 33% for the ANC. However, it could, on certain voter turnout projections, get as much as 53%. What's going on there?
All right, Mike, this is a very important question you've held, because often one reads in the newspapers and in the general media that the ANC has slipped to 33%, 36%, 38%. But that does not tell the full story. And I'm glad you've asked for that explanation, because it is necessary for the people to understand. The 33% represents the percentage of voters or participants that took part in the survey. And that represents as a sample of all the eligible voters in South Africa. But there are three important words. First, eligible. Second, registered. And third, turnout. So in an election, obviously only the registered voters will be able to cast their vote. And in South Africa, we currently have around 42.3 million eligible voters. That is people over the age of 18, but only 26.152 registered voters. And the profile of the registered voters is completely different to the profile of the eligible voters. For example, we know that the youth have not registered. So the registered voters are underrepresented in terms of the youth. So you can't simply take the percentage of eligible voters and apply it to the registered voters. That's the first important point. The second point is in the 33%, that is 33% of 100% of the voters. But included in that figure is a number of voters that have said they're not going to vote. In fact, 5% said they're not going to vote. That 5% needs to be discarded, because in an election, they will obviously not be voting. Then there's another 10% of respondents that indicated that they don't want to tell us who they vote for, or that they are not sure who they're going to vote for. They don't know at this point in time. But when those people go into the poll, they're going to exercise a vote for a political party. So to determine the more accurate result, one has to apportion that 10% to the various political parties. And how we do that is that we have an algorithm that looks at what are the characteristics of a typical ANC, DA, EFF voter. And this is only part of a much larger survey that we do, our social cohesion survey. We look at what are the opinions expressed by these respondents. So what are the typical opinions that are expressed by ANC, DA, and EFF voters? And that then allows us to apportion those votes to the political parties. So that when we say if an election was to be held tomorrow, what will the result be? Now we are looking at all the voters that have been registered. And then we find when one does that, the ANC bounces up from 33% to 43%. Right. Then the third word, so that's eligible and registered. The third word is turnout. Now we know that when you have a high voter turnout, the distribution between the parties is completely different to when you have a low voter turnout. So we've looked at the historical trends and we've said, how does the split normally take place when you have a high voter turnout? How does the split take place when you have a medium voter turnout? How does the split take place when you have a low voter turnout? And then we have done those projections. And when one does those projections, then one finds that the ANC will get somewhere between 48 and 53%. Now, on the low voter turnout, they've worked on 36. The data scientists have worked on 36%. I don't think the voters are that disinterested that they will not be turning out in such mass numbers. But the high voter turnout has worked out at 66%, and we've seen that there's a disinterest that is starting to appear within the voting system. I don't think that we are going to see those high turnouts like we saw in the early 90s, etc.
So on your best guess, let's say you take your best estimate of turnout, you would say what? That would be a moderate to low turnout would be your best estimate.
My best estimate is the medium turnout scenario.
And that is what for the ANC?
48% for the ANC, 20% for the DA, 17% for the EFF, and then the other smaller parties. What does that mean? That means at the national level, it will be very difficult for the opposition to put a coalition government together. Because remember, in that coalition is the EFF, the DA, etc., who cannot sit around the same table. For the ANC to get a coalition partner, it is pretty easy. If they get 48%, there's two things that happen.
Like it's basically a majority government. They can find a party or two parties that have 1% each, and that's a pretty easy stitch together.
That's a very
offer them a cabinet ministry, offer them a cabinet position east. Yes, I am looking at you, Patricia DeLille, and you've got the problem solved. Daryl, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much. That's a poll you'll see getting a bit of attention, so you can put your headline on it whichever way you like. ANC plummet to 33% support, or on a medium turnout, ANC will get 48%. Take your pick as to how you interpret that Ipsos poll. I do say all political opinion polling everywhere in the world has a health warning on it at the moment. Not an industry with the best track record at the moment.